Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's Garden Ramblings, I'm going to tour the garden. It's August 15th, really transitioning over to the fall garden, the cool weather crops. It's only about 62 degrees, just about 7 a.m. Will is going to be on the tour with us. The cool temperatures have arrived finally. We had hot temperatures, like extraordinarily hot, from first week of June, maybe second week of June, all the way until about last week. 95 plus degree temperatures. You're going to notice all the shade cloth is off my garden. So the days now are in the mid 80s, nights are falling into the 60s. That's really a great time to get your fall garden planted in August. Use the warmth of August to get those cool weather crops growing and get them larger, and then you're going to get a harvest sooner come the fall. But these temperatures are also great to revitalize your warm weather crops. Pepper garden right here. I have about 10-12 plants in this Vajega raised bed. I'm affiliated with them. If you'd like metal raised beds, I highly recommend them. Check out the video description. The beauty right here is, and Kim and Jerry from Cali Kim DIY are visiting. So they're here. We're going to be doing videos throughout the next couple of days. But this is a Ramblings, and we had shishitos last night. We picked them, we grilled them. But what I want to show you is, look at all these beautiful flowers. With the cooler temperatures coming, the plants know that it's the right temperature to live, to thrive, to grow, and I'm going to get another wave of shishitos, maybe two, as long as those temperatures at night are staying in the 50s, a little bit higher. Pepper plants will keep going. My point being is, your plants might be kind of beat up. Hit them with a water-soluble fertilizer. I'll show you that as we're walking around. But they are coming back to life. And your garden that may have been stalled from the summer heat, a lot of those crops are going to take off. The blueberries looking good. They're not going to get fed maybe at the end of the season, but I predominantly feed my blueberry plants in the spring. Water-soluble fertilizer, some organic granular. This whole space has taken off and done beautifully over the last 5 years, and I'm really going to have to trim this up for the first time because things are getting out of control. These trees have been really hacked back. They were supposed to be dwarf, they're not, or semi-dwarf at least. They're going to get cut back by at least a third so that this space stays okay. Again, I've talked about them before. My southern sun and western sun are over here, so the sun comes this way. The shadows cast towards my greenhouse, so these trees don't impact or cause any problems with the rest of the plants growing in here. Just did a video on revitalizing your strawberry plants, and maybe that's the theme for today, is to revitalize your summer garden. Get those plants that are still alive and kicking, get them flourishing so you get another wave of production out of them. Just cleaned up the strawberries. They were all hit with water-soluble fertilizer. They all look pretty good. Water them more regularly. The beauty with this high heat being gone is I was having to water these towers just about every day, and it's fine for a couple of days or a week, but it was going on for a good 4, 5, 6 weeks, and I was just getting burned out. Strawberries look good. I'm going to get a second harvest out of these, a fall harvest I should say. Now the strawberries won't be as large, but I'm still going to get that harvest out of there. Pepper plants in the ground, nice and green, looking good. Lots of new growth. Eggplant doing pretty good. You can see the dust on there. Remember, I talked about flea beetles on here. Those are the real tiny black specks that when you touch near them, they hop. They will devastate my eggplant. So the dust goes on later in the evening, takes care of the flea beetles, and like I said, it's actually not even 7 o'clock yet. But I rinse it off in the morning, get rid of the dust, so that the good pollinators and such have less of a chance of being harmed. Remember, any dust will harm the plants. This guy was a little bit beat up. He got a little dust on there because I thought I saw some flea beetles. The tomato plant and the eggplant are actually, I think it's the same family. I always get confused if it's family or class or whatever. But they're in the nightshade family, so the flea beetles like both of them. They just tend to like the eggplant more. This guy got hit with a water-soluble, and you can see all the new growth. Nice and green, flowers, tiny tomatoes. It's going to come back and it's going to do really well. A little bit of dust, control the flea beetles on there. You don't have to go crazy. Like, you don't want to dust the tomato plant and cover everything. It's just not necessary. Insects and beetles will climb through that. And just because you have an infestation on your tomato doesn't mean those same bugs want to get onto your beans. So there's no need to go then and dust all your beans. And sometimes that happens. We see one insect, we panic, and everything gets treated with a fungicide or dust. Could be organic, could be chemical, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we go crazy and dust everything. These leaves are a little bit beat up, but these have been producing for ever. I don't even know what harvest I'm on. They keep going and going. What I want to show you here is that's just one plant on a pole, one plant in the corner over there, one plant in the corner right there. I only really needed one plant. Under here I have more shishitos, and I grew this to kind of create some shade, protect the peppers during that high heat. Let's see if I can get a shot of the peppers. And I was just kind of making a natural shade cloth and barrier. So needless to say, I mean, there's still peppers in there. They look good, but it was too much growth. You can see all the green beans, well, purple beans, but when you cook them they actually turn green, so they lose their purple color. But the shishitos over here where they get more sun, they're nice and large. And then the shishitos in the center, they just got shaded too much. So next year I'll probably just grow one bean right up the pole and then spread it out across. And the idea being late June, July, when the heat, or when the sun is high, it's beating down, heating up everything, this will create some shade. But it's just too dense, not enough light was getting through. Basil, I have a video growing basil all summer long. It looks great. Cut it back by half. When it was really hot, I kept cutting it back. Keeping everything watered is really the key to having a thriving garden. A little bit of water, plants stay alive. A little bit more than a little bit more, they do pretty good. If you water more than you think, the garden goes crazy. We underwater. I don't know why it came to be that we have this fear of underwatering, or actually overwatering. Like we have this fear that we can overwater our plants and kill them, that we can drown them. So because of that, we tend to underwater. Basil thrives with a lot of water. Tomatoes thrive with a lot of water. And you want it to be consistent. Like when it was hot, I was watering just about every day, if not every other day. Nice deep soaking, the shallow roots, you know, a good amount. And the cherry tomatoes weren't cracking. They've all cracked now because about 5 days ago or so, we got like 1 inch, 2 inches of rain. And when that happens, the plants just absorb the water real quickly and a lot of the fruit crack. A lot of it I've shaken off, taken off the plants, so they're all dropping. But they're all coming back. Some varieties of tomato plants get more beat up in the sun. Other ones tend to do okay. And this one's coming back. There's some flowers. Those flowers look a little bit crisped. So I would be looking around for newer flowers. And this is what I'm looking for. Something nice like that. This guy's coming back. Still some tomatoes on there. Nice big ones. When it gets really hot and you're going through kind of the revitalizing your plant, go ahead, pick off most of the ripe tomatoes. This is a Juliet, absolutely massive. The brown leaves, I just leave on there. Like I'm not pruning them. Dying leaves on the bottom, they get yellow and beat up, and you can see how the leaves have been removed. Well, they actually naturally fall off. Nope, I'm lying. Up to about here, I come out and I prune them all off. I want a gap in there. And once I have that 12-inch gap, I stop pruning. And anything that kind of dies or gets beat up, I just leave on there and it just dries up and falls off. That's not disease. That's just a plant that got beat up from the sun. When a plant needs nutrients, it takes it from the bottom leaves. They yellow, it sends all the good stuff up top. And when all the good stuff goes up top, you get something like this. Again, tomatoes are coming back. And I'm gonna have a good 6 weeks of tomato production before maybe the weather gets too cold. Everything coming back, coming back. The leeks are looking good. They're gonna be, actually you can eat them now. Like I like them to be about twice that size, a little bit thicker, but I use them, you know, as I need them now. And I use them as onions, as a replacement to onions. Has a nice light onion taste to it. These are cucumbers that are overripe, and you actually want them to ripen and look like this if you want to save seeds. So I'm going to do a whole video on this, but you let your cucumber get to about there. You can pick it, you can let it sit on the counter, you can even leave it on the vine. But when you leave cucumbers over ripening on the vine, sometimes production slows down, I found. So I just pick them, let them sit like this. The seeds are still going to mature, and you want mature, healthy seeds. If you pick a cucumber too soon, when the plants are tiny, Willow wants to check those out, the seeds are flat, they're not mature, they're not going to be viable. So you definitely want your cucumber to look like this if you're going to be saving seeds. And this plant, there's actually two in there. This plant has been in here since, I guess I planted it in May. Anyway, it was the first cucumber plant. All that extra water, nice new leaves, all that extra water has kept this plant thriving and going to the point that I'm getting more cucumbers than I can use. They do end up, staying on the vine and getting too big. Bunching onions, peppers all look good, beautiful bells, yellow peppers. The key, I'm going to keep saying it, is watering. And maybe, now you have time, but next year, do an experiment. Water certain plants a little bit more, find kind of the sweet spot for your area, because watering is going to vary based on temperature. When it was 95 plus, again, I was watering just about every day, every other day, depending on, what the crop was. Here's a cantaloupe plant that I put in late. This is my final round of cantaloupe. It should do pretty well in there. Sunflowers, dying back. I'll probably be cutting that back soon. So depending on the plant, I was watering, more often, a little bit less, depending on how it's growing too. If it's in a container, if it's in the ground. Anyway, if in doubt, water more. As long as your containers have drainage, as long as your plants are in the ground, the water's going to go away. Tomato plants, some are beat up, but they're all going to come back up top. And you can see like all these green tomatoes in here. It's not going to stop. And sometimes you question, should I get rid of these plants? What should I do? Water soluble fertilizer, perfect time to use the chemical types. They're not going to harm your plant. These are all hit with a water soluble chemical. 90% of the time, I'm organic. Why the chemical? It's got everything in there that these plants need to do well. Really high in nitrogen to get that leaf growth back. It's not going to harm the soil no matter what you hear. You have to use chemical fertilizers like 24/7 for years to wreck your soil. And anyway, a water soluble or an organic granular fertilizer, that's not what your soil needs. Yes, it feeds the microbes in there. You must have compost, lots of organic matter. So you have to be using compost. You can't build good garden soil with an organic water soluble or an organic granular fertilizer. Yeah, they're organic in quotes, but they don't build the soil. Must use compost. It really makes a difference. And I do recommend, if you're a new gardener, first thing that you want to do, build a compost pen, and maybe we'll walk by those. Just still getting tomatoes. All have been fed with the water soluble fertilizer. Lots of leaf die off. I'm not overly worried about that. Looking for the upper growth. These will probably get hit with an anti-fungal spray soon. Maybe hydrogen peroxide. I mean, this is all I'm looking for. And if the plants are getting too tall, just bend them down and, trellis them back down the trellis a little bit so that, you don't have to reach up 6-7 feet if you're not tall enough. But they look really good. Poblanos, the plant looks good. This is my tomatillo. Just one plant. A lot of times people say you need two. I'm getting more than I can harvest. They're falling on the ground. Chocolate sprinkles. Here's that cucumber plant. All from increasing the watering. The feeding schedule is pretty much like I talk about in my videos. Watermelon starting to go up there. I'm going to show you my massive watermelon patch. These look good. This is my first cantaloupe. Not ready, not ready. Close to being ready. And then if we come over on this side, this guy's ready to eat. So that'll be picked soon. Well, what do you got? She's looking for a rabbit that comes in here. Have some dill in here. Back up. Come here. All right, come here. Step out. So in here is dill, a couple more cantaloupe. These are planted, actually can tell you exactly, on 7/15. So it's they went in about July 15th, my replacement plants, and they're huge. They're going to start producing very soon. You still have time. If you're not getting a frost till the end of October or later, put in another round of squash, zucchini. I have another round of cucumbers in. I have my Armenian cucumbers right here. They look pretty good. They were getting eaten by something. They got dusted last night. Super hots all look good. They loved the hot weather. This is where I planted a lot of my lettuce. Well, and here's the remainder of the shade cloth. There was shade cloth over here. Now that the temperatures have dropped into the 80s, the nights are 60s, you really want to pull the shade cloth off. Make sure these cool weather crops get the light that they need. But lettuce right there, that was all beautiful, all the way through there, all the way through there. When I went away, built the garden for my daughter, grasshoppers came in, chewed everything down. It was a mess. Lost my butternut, but you know, that happens. I don't have a backup plant for that, so we're just not going to have butternuts really this year. This is my purple tomato plant. It's just called purple tomato, and it's a GMO, genetically modified, with a snapdragon. These are supposed to get a deep purple, and when you cut it in half all the way through, it's purple. It's getting beat up by a disease. This guy actually has to get sprayed. But what I look for is the older leaves are problematic, the newer leaves are not. So I do have some time to spray. I don't think this fungus is going to continue. The fungi that hit plants, there's different varieties. They're sensitive to the temperatures, the moisture, and when those temperatures change, when the nature changes around it, they stop multiplying basically. So you still want to spray. If you're not sure, spray. Take notes, learn what different fungus and diseases come into your garden. I'm letting this one sprawl across the ground. Going to bury the stems. They will root out, and it's just going to be a massive patch of strawberries in here, especially since the butternut died. I'm going to use this space. Willow, get out of there. She's walking in the pea patch, which sounds funny just to say out loud. Here is another cucumber plant. That one went in on 7/25, so it's only been about 3 weeks. These plants are going to take off, so I am putting in my final round of the warm weather crops. Strawberry tower. Here are pepper plants in my green stalk garden towers, which I highly recommend. I'm affiliated with them. Been growing in these for 8 years. The plants look great, except they're a little bit yellow, so they need a water-soluble fertilizer. So they're all going to get fed. Keeping up with the watering, you get beautiful massive plants, tons of fruit. They're holding right now 3 pepper plants per tier. This was a pepper tower. Your container and towers are just going to whip through water, number one. So you may have to water these twice. Like when it was hot, I was watering these towers in the morning and again at night. But they're going to whip through all the nutrients in there. So you have to probably feed these every 7 to 14 days when they're large with a water soluble, just to keep them green. Once they get nitrogen, they're going to green up. They're going to be good. More cucumbers. So the cucumbers in this bag were put in on 7/25, and they look great. They're nice and large. Again, they're going to start producing. Same variety over here that I have growing in this space. And there's a beauty right in there. There's another one tucked right back there. This guy has not stopped producing. It's in a 100-gallon root pouch, which I do sell at my seed shop. There are 1, 2, 3 plants in here. Water, water, water. And I didn't really have to replace this plant. I actually did less cucumber planting this year because of the watering, in my opinion, and the plant's just doing so well. And I assumed that they were going to be beat up by the summer, basically, insects, heat, etc., and that I need to replace them. I probably just have to give them a little spray, manage any insects on there, so they're going to get their peppermint oil spray, which works really well for spider mites, and they should, you know, continue to thrive. Snap peas went in there on July 28th. Definitely get your peas in now. A lot of people know that peas are cool weather crops. They like the colder temperatures, especially these 60-degree nights that are coming in. But they are not frost tolerant. The leaves are, so the plants keep growing, but the flowers and the pea pods themselves are not. So if they get frost, they actually get rubbery or they die off, and it can wreck your peas. More snap peas in there. For some reason, only half of them germinated. That's a 20-gallon pot. You can put in easily 8 to 12 pea plants in there, seeds, and just trellis them up an old tomato cage. So this is kind of the root pouch corner. These are cow peas, if you're wondering what they are. I let the beans dry on there, and that's the beans that I use over winter. They make great soup, and they're delicious at about this size. And they grow differently too. They grow on tips. They have beautiful flowers, and you want to harvest them not much past here, because they get the pods themselves get hard to chew. But when they're tender and small, you can eat the pods, the beans of course. Well, I want to show you these too. Marigolds, doing extremely well. Increased watering in the containers, normal feed schedule, and I just like how well the yellow marigolds are doing in here. Add in beautiful color. That is Thai basil back there. I mean, it's just beautiful. So I like having things mixed up. This plant was the most problematic in early July. Actually gave it more water than any tomato plant because this section just seemed to dry out a lot. And it's because the southern sun's over here, western sun over here. This area just gets beat by the sun. I don't have shade cloth over it, so I increased the watering. The tomatoes got a little bit beat up. I've removed most of the ones that were damaged, made a salad out of them, and they're ugly looking, but they're delicious. I'll just cut that top off. These should come back nice and strong. They already are, actually. Again, what am I looking for? All those flowers. They look nice. Let's turn around here. The biggest thing that I wanted to do was get my peas in. I love peas. I want to get them early enough so that the frost doesn't come in. I put beets in here on July 14th, and they are coming back, but they got chewed down too. You can still see they're still beat up. Hopefully they come back. Let's get a little bit closer. Chewed down by the grasshopper. Or I should say grasshoppers. They just wrecked the beets. Purple top turnips look good. First round of peas are right here, and they did not get shade cloth. These went in on 7/18, and they do look a bit beat up and kind of spotty. The sun did a little bit of a number on them. Probably 7/18 is probably the right time for me to get the peas into here. Maybe a little bit later, another week after. After that might be perfect, because a lot of the peas that you're going to see went in on July 25th, 7/25. But I could have tossed some shade cloth over here, protected these a little bit. The peas over here went in on 7/31. I don't know if you can see that date. They're up, they look good. And what I recommend is to experiment, to go ahead and put some in on 7/18. See how they do with your temperatures. These guys got a little beat up. Put it some more in a week later, some more a week later, and this way you'll figure out the sweet spot for planting peas or your cool weather crops. Carrots went in on 7/14. They do really well planted later in the summer. You can plant them now. They germinate, they take off, they can take the frost, they're going to produce, they're going to be great. Because we still get frost doesn't mean you can't plant collards. There's some cabbage right there. Doesn't mean you can't plant these because the frost of fall is coming. It just means you want to get them in, get them growing, get them larger, and then they're going to deal nicely with the cool weather, the frost, because they don't get damaged. But what happens is if you don't get them in too soon, everything starts cooling down, the ground starts cooling down, and maybe they don't mature in time. So I'm in Maryland Zone 7, and if you're in a hotter area, maybe you do this a little bit later. If you're in a cooler area, maybe a little bit sooner. But sometime between 7/15, 8/15, I plant a lot of the fall crops. Some fall crops won't be going in till later, and I'll be doing a video on that with Kim on fall gardening, and we're just going to hit fall gardening full speed. Like for instance, radishes, arugula, pak choi planted now just aren't going to do well. Another round of peas. Plant what you love. This is a great plant because I didn't plant this, and look how healthy it is. From just throwing old green beans and scraps into my compost bin, this guy took off. This is like a whole other round of green beans. Here they are up here. And it's just growing out of the compost bin. No organic fertilizers, no water-soluble fertilizer, nothing but compost. Not even watering it. So this gives you some idea of the power of compost in nature and just how well the plants do. Now granted, there's a mass of organic matter in there, so it stays really moist, so the plants are able to get what they need, and they're just beautiful. When I'm talking about watering a garden, more often than you think, you really have to understand your soil. You may have the best soil, and if you do, maybe you have to water a little bit less. If you have soil that doesn't have a ton of organic matter, you're going to have to water more often. The whole key with garden soil is that it does not need to be perfect in the beginning. In fact, you're always building soil over time, slowly but surely, adding in organic matter, adding in mulch, grass clippings. There's another cucumber forming right in there. And eventually you're going to have the best soil around. The whole key again, you thought I was going to say watering. The whole key again is just slow and steady addition of organic matter to your garden beds, and you're going to have beautiful stuff over the years, and you're not going to have to spend a fortune. More leeks. I think this was round 2. Clean this area up. Lots of sage growing. The Facing Heaven peppers look good. As soon as they turn red and they actually start to wrinkle a little bit, I take these and make dried peppers out of them. So I let them stay on here till the pepper begins to dry out actually on the plant. This whole space is being trimmed down by a deer. Let me show you the damage to a tree in a second. But this is my garden as of middle of August. Refreshed, weeded out, revitalized, and it looks really, really good. So I'm happy with where I'm at middle of August. Summer crops, final round is in, taking care of the plants that are older, and I'm putting in my first round of fall crops to get them growing so I have a nice big harvest. If we come right down here, and this is a tree that was covered in peaches, and there was also a whole other section right over here that looked just like this. A male deer, a really big one, came in, was tugging on it, eating the peaches off of there on the lower level, and the whole tree split. So I'm trying to have this recover, put some chicken wire on there, protect these branches, and I'm just going to let this grow, and hopefully it's going to recover. It's just a wonderful tree. The peaches were really good, so we'll see what's going to happen with it. Willow, stay close. Most of what's left in here are potatoes, so I'm still digging them up. I'm starting to lose my voice. Let's go over to the compost. I like showing this off because I want to encourage people to really start a compost pile as the first thing before they even dig a garden, if you have the space. This is my original compost pile. This is where the beans are growing out of. I got tomatoes growing out of some of them. Different setup here. You don't need anything elaborate like this, but I've got plenty of compost. That's what I like to use for, obviously, organic matter. That's what I consider organic gardening. You know, organic fertilizers, yes, they're stamped organic, but it's really not the heart of organic gardening. Compost bin, all the refuse, tomatoes, stuff that I took out of the garden over the last couple of days. Mix of leaves, of greens and stuff like that. Lots of leaves on the bottom. I like leaf compost, but this is a mix. This bed is just leaves, pine needles. It was filled all the way to the top, totally dropped down. This is going to be great stuff. All you need, I wanted to show you, is just some fencing, put it together as a circle, start composting. It's that easy. I like this setup better. It's a little bit cleaner. I have a little front door on there, but you don't have to spend the money on metal posts. That's easy. 8, 16, 24, 32 bucks in posts. Just go with the fencing. If you don't have the fencing, just go with the pile. If you're doing leaves, of course, the wind's going to blow them away. But if you're doing something like this, grass and mixed debris, you can just pile it up. Make sure it's uncovered, make sure moisture gets in there. Let's wrap up with my garden down here. So where you saw the potatoes, I didn't have a chance to put in my pumpkins and melons and stuff like that, but I did plant 2 watermelon plants right in here, and look how beautiful they're doing. Amazing. These are getting sprayed more often with an antifungal because fungi tend to take over powdery mildew. Our melons here, but it's amazing. Lots of flowers on there, hoping to get melons soon. Still have plenty of time. That's my muscadine tunnel. I mean, they look great. These were not watered except when they were younger through the beginning of July. I think I put these in late. Made sure I kept the watering in until they got massive root systems. As the melons sprawl around, they'll root out. They do anchor roots and stuff like that. Oh, there we go. Let's come over here. This is what I was wanting to see. That's going to be a nice big melon right in there. So if I only get one, that's great, but I'm sure should be able to at least get 2 out of here. Lost my train of thought, of course. But what I was saying is they put out anchor roots, not like pumpkins, but they'll put additional roots into the ground, help support them. But by keeping an antifungal on here and stopping the powdery mildew from coming, these plants should thrive and grow nicely until the first frost really comes in. There's Willow. Willow, too far. Come on, over here. Good dog. Back area of my garden, you can see my greenhouse right over there. So that's pretty much where I'm at for the middle of August. This is when I get my energy back. I've been talking about being a little bit burned out. And that just happens July 15th, you know, till the first week of August or whenever. Another compost bin, highly recommend it. I like the cool weather. It's like 60 degrees right now, 62 degrees early in the morning. The garden's coming back. I've got it into the shape that I like. Still going to get produce from my summer crops. Fall crops are in. You know, I just recommend don't get beat up by your beat up garden. Don't get discouraged when plants are dying. It happens. There's always going to be something that's going to be growing and coming back. And you're going to learn. I've been learning for the last 30 years, 40 years. But just taking a look around, that's not so bad for mid-August. Here's, you know, a disappointment when I came back. This was all loaded with beautiful lettuce like there on the left. And it all got chewed down by grasshoppers. When I got back, I dusted it. I think I got them under control, but I'm going to start over. When you have to pull plants out, remove them. When you have to replant, replant. But don't get too discouraged just because something's not going how you wish. It happens. It happens to all of us. You know, lately I've been showing my garden more in sort of disarray, not that HGTV look, just so people know that gardens aren't supposed to be perfect. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com and please subscribe. I'll teach you how to grow food, have fun, and save some money. Thanks for watching.